Welcome back to the next episode of the Ekkocast. I am here with Stephen Knable, member of Echo and also very, very big bodybuilder. We're in very different weight classes, let's put it that way. There might be a little bit of other substances involved, which we are going to be talking about today. I figure me being a natural bodybuilder, him being enhanced, we're going to give you guys a bit of a perspective into some of the differences, some of the things that are the same. I think often people don't realize how much overlap there can be, but also some of the differences in approach, mentality, things that might change throughout the course of prep, etc. It's going to be a really interesting topic for you guys today, so I'm happy to introduce Knable to you guys. I think it should be pronounced Knable, but apparently it's Knable, so we'll just run with it. Knable, want to give him a bit of your background, tell him what got you into bodybuilding, coaching, etc.?
So I was an athlete all my life. I played basketball and baseball, but baseball was really what I went farther with. I ended up playing in college. So actually the story of how I got into lifting isn't really super traditional, I guess. I saw my friend got really big, like, I want to look like that. So I started.
How old were you at that point?
I was 18. So I haven't been training I feel like everyone thinks I've been training for like 15 years, but I really haven't been training that long.
So how old are you now?
27. So it's been 8.5 years roughly.
See, this is the difference between true bodybuilders and bodybuilders. He views 8.5 years as not a long time, where I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this are 2, 3, 4 years into your training and you're thinking you're pretty advanced. Bodybuilding is a long-term game, so don't forget that.
Yeah, that's what I tell a lot of my clients too. They'll be like, hey, what do you think I could do in like a year or two? I'm like, hey, come back to me in 10, 15 years, and then
Exactly.
we'll be able to see what your potential is. Yeah, I got in the gym. I was kind of training half for baseball, half for bodybuilding. So I would actually avoid like a lot of like shoulder, like overhead pressing, bench pressing, stuff like that. And then I ended up getting injured. Well, I kind of had an injury-riddled career all throughout college, but I tore my labrum. I don't know if you guys know in baseball, that's kind of like you're done when that happens. So that point, that was 2017. So that's where I kind of transitioned from, like lifting like a gym bro athlete into like full-on bodybuilding. I don't recommend you guys do this, but I kind of just went from baseball right into a show like right away. So I competed actually in a natural organization in 2017, which was the WMBF. Ended up winning that show actually. So
was that the show that you sent me the picture where you were just like,
yeah, that I think was actually the most conditioned I ever. I was only like 175 pounds, but I think that was the best, like condition wise, I ever looked.
I mean, that's not a bad size for a first time natural bodybuilder though. Like it's not. I mean, obviously it's not huge, seeing as you're how tall?
6'1".
Yeah, so 6'1", 175. I mean, you're gonna be a decent, especially if you're shredded. You're going to be a decent presence on stage.
I wouldn't say I was like a scrub, but
exactly.
A lot of, when you kind of get into bodybuilding more and more, you see how far the human body is capable of going. You kind of realize like how far back you are in a sense.
What category did you compete in?
I did men's physique at that point.
Oh, okay.
I was a board short guy.
Well, hey, as long as you have a good upper body structure, you're going to do well at 175 there, especially being a taller guy.
Yeah, for sure. And then from there, I took a little bit of time off. I competed in 2019 again as a natural. I did classic and men's physique. That was actually in the MPC. I did pretty well at those shows too. I won classic. I believe I got third in men's physique.
Okay.
And then I competed again enhanced in 2021.
So the first time you were doing the NPC, you were enhanced at that point.
And then I became enhanced in 2020 and competed enhanced in 2021. And since then, I haven't competed.
Oh, you competed in 2021?
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay. See, for some reason I thought you were like 4 or 5 years out from your last show. but
No, it'll be about 3.
okay. And your plan to compete in when?
May of 24.
Okay. Yeah. So how much, out of curiosity, how much size do you think you would have added in actual lean tissue since your last show to now?
As far as a weight difference, I expect to come in definitely harder. So I think the weight difference isn't going to be anything crazy because I was right around the cap last time, but I don't know if you know they raised cap in classic physique. So I'm gonna have to be right around that 224 mark. Last time I was 218, so I only have 6 pounds to play with, regardless.
And to give people a picture, what are you weighing in at right now?
I'm waking up in the mid 260s. About. It's gonna be tough to make, but like I said, you set professional standards for yourself. Come in like a professional. I'll make it.
Man, see, and that's I think this is where people get very confused on the natural versus enhanced topic. Is they'll see people on Instagram, TikTok, etc., and you don't really get a full sense of the difference in size between people who are natural, people who are enhanced, because when you can fill up an entire screen with your physique, you'll look big as long as you have muscle, as long as you have some level of muscle, some level of definition. But if you were to take a guy like Knable, put him on stage next to me, both of us at stage readiness, you'd have no doubt, like I shouldn't say no doubt, but you would take a look at it and you would say, okay, obviously these people are playing 2 different ball games. And I think that's where people tend to get confused because they'll see the striations, they'll see vascularity, and automatically it's, okay, that person must be enhanced.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're looking at that person next to somebody like you, and they're like, oh yeah, like they look similar. But if you actually put those people next to each other, standing on stage, the person blows them out of the water. So what would you, that leads me into another topic that I wanted to talk about, which is, or I should say a few topics, and most of those are, what were the main differences that you noticed when you were training as a natural versus training enhanced, as far as the way you felt psychologically, tissue growth, just a general perspective on the differences that you noticed? Let's say first cycle.
My first cycle? So my first cycle actually was during COVID. So I started like 3 weeks before the whole world shut down. So it was like the worst possible time. Luckily I had a friend that had like a complete home gym in his basement. So I wasn't able to like train how I wanted to, but I could still train hard. So the first thing I noticed was strength for sure. Like my strength, I think at the time I was benching as a natural, like maybe 315 for like 5 or 6. And then like 8 weeks later, I was doing it for like 15. Like it shot up. A lot of water retention I noticed for sure. My weight shot up. Psychologically, I don't think I really felt too different.
So you didn't feel like that?
That time was weird for me because I was going through some stuff personally. So it was like I probably wouldn't have been feeling the best regardless. So it's kind of hard to gauge on that first cycle. But I would say in general, like I don't think like anything changed too much psychologically, but that's just more an individual thing. Because as you know, obviously, when you add in substances, pretty much anything, what it does is like it'll amplify things over 10 times, right? So if you're prone to something like anxiety or you're prone to something like depression, it'll make it worse. If you're prone to something like acne or hair loss, it'll make it worse.
Yeah, they tried to tell us about that in Captain America.
Yeah.
Where he's like, good becomes great, bad becomes, I can't remember exactly the quote, but it's basically they described PED usage right there.
I definitely noticed, because I dealt with acne my whole life. So my first cycle when I was on it, I actually didn't get acne, but when I came off onto like a TRT dosage, that's when I got like really the worst acne of my life. And it's kind of just like that hormonal fluctuation. Like it depends. Everyone's different. So
that's interesting. Now, were you managing your own cycle at that point, or did you get a coach before that?
I had a coach. So it was just a standard 500 milligram test. I did it for about...
So you didn't add in any other compounds at that point?
No. I believe he told me he wanted to do like an oral kickstart of D-ball, but I was like scared my first cycle. So I was like, let's just stick with the test.
I mean, 500's a pretty, like, I guess, how much were you weighing at that point?
I was like 230, I think, as natural.
So I guess it's a little bit different for you, but that's, I mean, even so, that's still pretty hefty for a first time.
I would say that
I should say compared
it's
to
a normal person. For a bodybuilder,
oh yeah, no, absolutely.
the goal was to get as big as possible.
Yeah,
On that, and that was still like you talk to some of these guys, like that's the baby.
oh no, I'm not talking about the people that just go gung ho into it, but I don't know if you've looked into what's called like the safer model.
Pick that up.
Yeah, exactly.
I use that. Well, my coach is big into that. John Jewett was big into it. I use that on my clients, especially like more lifestyle clients. I'll use
Right.
where you kind of have the lower dose test and then use like a DHT to drive growth.
Exactly. Because I feel like, and maybe I'm off on this, but from what I've heard, when it comes to safer model, it would probably have had you starting a little bit lower than that, right? If you were first time, like normally it would be somewhere like around
I'm
300, 400.
Yeah, I mean, I generally start like a lifestyle client that wants to get enhanced at like 250.
Yeah.
And then we'll taper up as seeing how they react.
That's more what I was expecting if you had said you were starting directly off with the safer model. But
that's kind of like not newer information, but it's newer being recognized. I feel like this was back in not that long ago, but back before like even social media was as prevalent as it is now.
Mm-hmm. So, and I'm assuming that based on your overall response to 500, that you've probably kept that as, I shouldn't say kept that, but like you probably haven't decreased from there.
I have actually. I'm
really
on the safer use model now.
Okay.
It's because of my skin issues. So I never in the last 2 years have gotten above 280 milligrams a test.
No way.
But I've used Masteron as the driver of growth. Right?
Gotcha.
So I've gotten all the way up. My ratio has been, this is not going to work for everyone, obviously. A lot of people will probably have crash D2 from this. But I was running 280 test and 980 Masteron at the peak of my bulk. Yeah,
that's so
it was such a huge disparity. But for me, my estrogen was still in a good spot.
Yeah.
So I definitely would not recommend. It's a very individual case.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
And obviously, everything we're talking about here, nothing is prescriptive. Like if you have any intentions to go the enhanced route, and you're gonna do it on your own, very, very dumb decision. Like there's people out there who understand what they're doing. There's people out there who have dedicated their lives to this, and they're still learning new things every single day. So anything that we talk about here, that it is obviously very specific to his circumstance because of the fact that he had somebody behind him helping him through this process. Like he probably understands it much better now, but at the same time, you have to build a base before you even start thinking about this stuff. And when I see people, I'm not going to name any names, but I see people on TikTok just promoting these things as if there's no
gonna work for 99% of people. It's just with my skin issues, where my estrogen was kind of reading on blood work, it just made sense.
all right.
Because most people, you have that big of a disparity, like your E2 is going to be in the toilet from that. So yeah, definitely would not recommend people try that as their first cycle. Sure.
Now, I have a question for you, seeing as you said that you're basically going to be, you might even, you said before, I don't know if we talked about this beforehand or if we talked about this while the camera was running, but you said that you're going to be pretty much squeaking in when it comes to making weight for this next show. So does that mean that you'll probably in the future make the jump to open?
More than likely. Yeah, I mean, I need to see if it's even feasible to make weight. I need to prep regardless because I've just been off season for too long. So let's say I'm 10 pounds away and 2 weeks out, I'm just going to jump into super heavyweights, compete, and then probably call it another off season.
Oh, so you might compete in open.
I'm doing open regardless.
Oh, you're going to do both.
I'm going to do both, but at the national level, classic is the main focus right now. So it's just kind of seeing where the cards fall in 15, 16 weeks from now, and then going from there.
And this is why a lot of times when people will ask me, they'll say, well, if you've accomplished what you have naturally, why don't you just hop on gear and go win the Olympia or whatever?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you don't really understand. First off, every single person at that top level has great genetics to begin with. There's nobody at the Olympia level who wouldn't look amazing as a natural also.
Yeah.
And then what you got to take into account too is structure. And I feel like a lot of people miss out on this aspect. So they see me and they're like, oh, well, you wouldn't have to get that big to be in classic. You wouldn't have to add on that much mass, maybe not take that many compounds. And then I'll have to explain to them, I'm like, I legitimately would not be capable of competing in classic physique and doing top level stuff because my structure is not suited for classic in the slightest.
Yeah.
And there's only so much you can do with your own genetics. So for you, the thing that I've always noticed about you is even when you were a natural, and maybe we'll have a picture we can throw up, but even when you were a natural, you always had that wide clavicle structure and that nice tight waist.
Yeah.
Which is essential if you're going to be competing in classic physique or men's physique.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the opposite. Pretty narrow clavicles, pretty wide waist. It's like I can put on mass, but at the same time, I'm never going to have that nice, amazing V-taper that you see people like yourself bring to the stage.
Yeah. And I remember I even texted you after the show. I said, have you ever considered it? Because you have that pop to your physique.
Yeah.
Where, I think if you did go that route, I mean, that would probably be your best shot. I think you could be pretty good.
I definitely have to be an open.
Yeah.
and that's the other thing. It's like as much as no, you don't necessarily have to take every compound in the book to get big, to get to that gargantuan size that those guys are.
Yeah.
You have to go pretty heavy at some point or another.
Well, everyone's using, even all the divisions now, they're all using a lot.
Well, some of the men's physique athletes, I'm looking at them, I'm like, you can barely fit into your board shorts. What are you doing in this category? Yeah. And they're just open bodybuilders who slapped on a pair of board shorts and just went for it.
Yeah, for sure. Every division's getting bigger now. I know they were talking about possibly bringing on a new division, but I don't see that selling personally.
I think they were kind of, and I could be wrong on this, but I think they were kind of making a statement with Terry when they gave him the win, that they are starting to look for a bit more of that.
Yeah, personally, I don't follow men's physique that.
Did you? So you didn't see the men's physique Olympia?
Ryan Terry won.
Yeah.
I couldn't name anyone else that. Well, I know Buendia competed again.
Right? Yeah. He looked good. But his physique is just. I think he did a video and I think he said he failed his peak and stuff like that. I don't know exactly all the details of it, but I do know that the midsection was definitely an issue for him this year. It just it didn't have there was not as deep of cuts in the abs and stuff like that, which is obviously super important for men's physique. But Terry, just taking a look at him, obviously he's put on size over the years, but he's not an overwhelmingly large athlete.
He's got the abs, the smile.
Exactly. And so when he won, I was super happy because he's been one of my favorites for a long time. But at the same time, I was thinking maybe the judges were making a statement hey, we prefer the look over the size.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a really cool way to see men's physique go, just because, you already have classic and open for those other aspects.
Yeah.
Why would you make men's physique about, okay, who can be the absolute biggest athlete?
Yeah, for sure.
It doesn't make sense to me. But there was another topic that I wanted to ask you specifically about. Oh, that's right. So changing things over time when it comes to cycles. How have you and your coach made the decision as to, okay, first cycle versus second cycle? Oh, first I should ask, how many cycles have you done so far? Or I should ask, like, do you fully come off when you come off, or
I don't fully come off. I've actually never came off since I've been on. So I'd either come down to, that TRT dosage and then, push things back up again. But I've never had a period where I was completely off since 2020.
Yeah, so we're getting close to the end of our time here. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave it for the next episode, and we're going to discuss kind of the progression over time when it comes to somebody's journey, when it comes to PEDs, who's doing it in an actually smart manner. But we hope you appreciated the talk. I want to thank Knable for being in here, and we're learning lots, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. So thank you, Knable.
Yep, sure. Thanks for having me on.